Hey friends, welcome to Liseybelle Laine, the space I'm creating for us to make, learn, and grow together. I am back from Tokyo. It's been way too long since I've recorded an episode. I really hoped to get one out before I left, but that didn't happen. So I am here, I'm back. I've got all kinds of goodies that I've brought back with me from Japan, and I'm excited to share with you the different crafty things that I got to do and experience while we were there. Let's get into it. Okay, before I get into the very much Tokyo stuff, I want to give you an update on the works in progress that I had from the last episode. I think I showed you this. This is my Occhiello pullover by, oh no. It's the Occhiello pullover, and I'm going to put the name in the description. Jet lag brain has got me all messed up, but I'll stand up so you can see. I finished it at a very cropped length and with short sleeves. I don't know that I'm going to leave it this length. I think I probably won't, but I decided that I really wanted to try to get this finished for our trip because I felt like the colors here in the yoke really reminded me of what the cherry blossoms look like. And so I was hopeful that I could take some pretty pictures of this with cherry blossoms. I worked on it the whole way there. And then trying to block it, wash it, and get it the right shape was a huge struggle. So I didn't get as many pictures, or I didn't get to wear it as early in the trip as I thought that I might, but we were there for 2 weeks. So by the time the trip was over, I did have this finished, washed, blocked, and I was able to wear it around. So I'm going to include some of those pictures here for you to see. A lot of the cherry blossoms were maybe a little bit more white than what this sweater ended up being like, but I still ended up getting some really lovely shots, and was glad that I was able to make that happen. I also had the goal of finishing my Lunenburg pullover by Amy Christophers, and I did. That one I actually finished except for weaving in all the ends before we left. Here it is, a little wrinkly from being folded up in a suitcase. I decided to do this contrast bind off on the neckband, and then I did the same thing on all the other ribbing, so it's just got that pop of the sort of bronze color. This sweater is probably one of the best things I have ever knit. It is soft but lightweight, warm, comfortable, fluffy. It's excellent. I am really, really happy with it. I think the colors of it suit me really well, and I will include in here some pictures, and I think just pictures of me wearing it. I didn't wear it as much as I planned because it ended up being warmer some of the days, and then there was a day that I definitely should have worn it but didn't. The only thing I might go back and change on this one, I'm happy with the sort of cropped-ish length. I got full-length sleeves, is the neckband, which I knew might be an issue. It's a little bit tighter than I would like. I did want it to draw in, but I'm having issues with, even though there are short rows to raise the back neck up higher than the front neck, it's riding up quite a lot and then kind of like bubbling here, and I think that's just the neckband is like ever so slightly too tight, so it's pulling the whole sweater in. And it does feel a little tight getting it over my head. with my glasses. So I fortunately pretty much never cast on with the ribbing anymore. And I cast on below the ribbing and then picked up and knit the ribbing. So it will be super easy to just come back and re-knit this neckband, which I think will give me a more comfortable fit. And I'm not in a huge hurry on it because it's late spring here in Oklahoma now, and I doubt that I'll really have opportunities to wear this sweater again until the fall. And same with making this one long sleeve and full length. That's something I want to come back and do. Probably I should do it sooner rather than later, just in terms of not forgetting what needle size I used and keeping track of where things were at with the pattern. But this is more practical for me to wear in this season anyway. So I may wait and make those modifications later. Yeah, we'll see. There aren't any decreases in the sleeve for this pattern, and it finishes with a color work, like sort of sliver of this color work on the wrist as well. And so this cuff can actually stay the cuff. I can cut and then knit in the rest of the sleeve. So I'm trying to think if there's a way to do that keeps it like still wearable while I'm also working on it, but I don't really know. We'll see. I have lots of other things that I want to work on, so it may just be something that sits for a while. This is the first time I've done, on a sweater like this, not done a neck ribbing. A lot of them will call for this sort of rolled neck, and I really didn't think I was going to like it, but I actually really enjoy the shape of this, and I think I chose the right size, which is exciting. I've had a lot of trouble with sizing for colorwork yokes because I don't have super defined shoulders, but I think both of these just right. So that's like, I'm really pumped about both of these sweaters. And it kind of goes to show that you have to keep knitting bad sweaters that don't fit to figure out what will work for you. I guess you don't have to. Maybe you're a magical knitter and you got your sweater just right on the very first try. But for me, I've knit a lot of garments, and a lot of them I've been disappointed by the finished product, and I don't end up wearing them, or I frog them and make them into something else. And it's really exciting to kind of reach a point in my knitting where I feel like I'm able to more consistently pick the correct size and shape that's going to work for me and my body. And actually like execute that. It's not that there was anything wrong with those patterns before. I just wasn't experienced enough to be able to tell what exactly I needed to do to make it work for me and which size to pick to make it work for me. So overall, I think that mostly looks like knitting things smaller. I think things call for a lot of ease, and that isn't necessarily always the most flattering on me, especially because I'm pretty shallow from my collarbone to my underarm. And so if things are really big here, it just doesn't look great. It doesn't mean I don't want extra room in the body. Like, this has quite a bit of extra fabric on the sides, but I want the fit up here around my shoulders and in my underarm to be just a little more snug. So I'm excited. I'm excited to keep knitting and keep figuring out what works for me. And of course, like, as my body changes, that will change too. So I'm not expecting it to be a perfect recipe here on out, but it's nice to have a couple of what feel like wins in a row. Yeah. I don't think I had finished it last time. If I did, then I will cut this part out, but I finished off the last touches on my Ribblesdale vest. I'm not going to wear this for you today. I wore it a couple of times before we went, and I'm not sure about it. It's pretty thick. It's pretty thick. It seems like it has negative ease, but then it kind of stretches and then stays stretched, so I end up with some like gaping around the sides, and it is very, very prickly. I know people knit sweaters with this Lettlopi yarn all the time, and it's the traditional Icelandic knitting yarn, and I really want to figure out how to be able to wear it, and I thought this vest might be it, But to be honest with you, even over a pretty thick undershirt, I can still feel the wool like working its way through what I'm wearing underneath. So again, winter's over here. I probably won't wear this again until at least the fall or later, but I need to experiment some more about what goes underneath it to hopefully make it be wearable for me, because I really would like to be able to wear this type of yarn and get use out of this vest. The pattern was excellent. I do highly recommend it. I just am on the fence about the yarn that I chose for it. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. And I think that that is it for finished objects. So that's most of my knitting. I have a couple of other knitting updates to give. So I wanted to show you where I was at with the socks I've been knitting on. I think it's been a while since I actually brought them. I'm keeping them in my Boston Farm and Fiber Festival bag, which I love. But I did work on these while we were traveling, and I've had the worst time with keeping consistent gauge on these socks. I actually think they go really well with the sweater. That's funny. I don't know what it is, guys. I've been knitting a long time and I keep having to frog them and start over, but I've got the leg and heel done on both socks with this decorative lace cuff, and I'm just using up the yarn that I have wound for them, and then I'm going to switch over to a new ball, but I was trying to keep them roughly consistent. So probably close to done. I sort of took a pause on them because while we were traveling, I ended up with some really bad foot swelling just from like all the walking and the airplanes and probably the sodium. But I went and got a pedicure yesterday and my feet are feeling fantastic. So I should try these on and see where I'm at and how much further I need to get to the toe. But I kind of stalled on that and then got excited about things that I got while we were gone. So what can I say? I'm going to save the other knitting that I have for later just because it kind of goes with stuff that I brought back from Japan, and give you a quick update on quilting. I ended up working on my English paper piecing quilt a lot more than I expected while we were gone. And I'd had kind of like two main pieces before, and I was able to join those together and get this long strip. How fun! I'm excited. Let's see. I don't remember how high it goes. I may be like halfway through the strip, and not everything is done. Like this is all pretty disconnected in here. This guy's only attached on one edge, but the larger piece is connected, and I've been working on getting all the little floppy bits stitched together as well. I've been taking pieces out as I get them entirely stitched in, but I'm feeling pretty excited about this. And I think I might start making like separate pieces to add on to this one so that I'm not having to like travel around with this every time, because it really did work pretty well as a portable project as long as I had enough time to work on it. So it was the kind of thing I would pull out if we were on a longer train ride or sometimes on the flights, things like that. The flights there, I worked exclusively on this sweater, but once I got through that, this ended up being what I worked on probably the most. So, and I'm taking the papers out of the middle as I go just so that I can fold it up a little bit more easily. I know Kate at the last homely house would say to leave them in to reduce strain on the fabric. It is what it is. It's happening. So, pretty much everything else I have are things that I brought back or things that I was able to craft while I was in Japan. And I don't even know where to start. I'm going to be completely honest with you. I think probably I should start with the yarn that I got. So I went to three different yarn stores while we were there. The last one was the biggest yarn store. I went to Walnut, which has a shop in Tokyo, but I realized that their flagship store is in Kyoto, and we actually spent some time in Kyoto. And so I decided to try to fit in the flagship store there instead of the one in Tokyo, which I think is smaller. I probably should have just gone to both, but I spent enough on yarn, I didn't need to go anymore. And I was keeping my eye out for a couple of things at the store there. I really wanted to find a yarn that would be a sort of souvenir of the cherry blossoms, because Sakura season was amazing. The cherry blossoms were amazing, and everything was like pale pink in the best way, and I wanted all the souvenirs to reflect that. So what I ended up getting for my Sakura yarn at Walnut is this gorgeous skein. It's got a light halo. It is hand dyed, so it has some, I don't know if the camera is going to be able to pick up, but it has some very subtle tonality to it. There are some parts that are a little bit warmer, parts that are more tan, and it's just that kind of, it's almost exactly this color, in fact, but it's that kind of like walking line between a pink and a white and a neutral that reminds me of the cherry blossoms. And this was it was a luxury spend. This is Amarisu, which is the company that kind of runs the Walnut shops. They have a magazine as well. Flow fingering hand dyed, which is 70% baby alpaca, 20% silk, 10% cashmere, 100 grams, 400 meters. It's so soft and so beautiful, and I'm kind of obsessed with their tags. So it slides open like that, and there's this little house that goes in front of the trees. Can you see that? And it holds it closed, little house. Isn't that cute? Ah, so cute. So I got 2 skeins of this. I haven't quite decided what I want to make. I'm thinking maybe a hitofude. I'm wanting to kind of maybe find a Japanese designer that maybe shows a little bit of the color variation better. But I want something that's going to maximize this yarn because it is like so soft. I did realize, unfortunately, like cherry blossom color kind of washes me out, so I don't necessarily want it to be something that's going to be right around my neck, but maybe a cardigan or something that I could wear with a darker color underneath to help me not look so ghostly. But I'm very excited to break into this. I was also looking, I had watched a few videos before we left, and I don't remember what yarn store it was or what the yarn was, but one person who was going around yarn shops in Tokyo found a yarn that was indigo dyed, and I was very interested in finding indigo dyed yarn. I wasn't able, as far as I could tell language-wise, I wasn't able to figure out anywhere that was selling indigo dyed yarn, but at Walnut I found a yarn that reminded me of the feeling of indigo dye, and in a way that I think will be maybe even more wearable for me. So this is also Amarisu, their Toro hand dyed, which is 100% superwash merino, 366 meters to 100 grams. And this is a single ply yarn. It is also very soft and very light feeling. And then it's got these like navy bordering almost on like gray purple speckles. Some sections are heavier than others, but I felt like an all over like indigo garment may not really work for me, but this I think might be a better match. So I've been swatching with this one, which is the other knitting that I've done. And the first swatch that I did came out like this, and I cannot express to you how light and soft this is. It's interesting to me how the speckles disperse from this to this. They look a little hazier, a little more blended, and almost less blue. Like they kind of read more like a charcoal gray here, which I think is really interesting. And because of it being a singles, it's like fuzzing up ever so slightly, and it's just making the coziest fabric. I think I might like to make a t-shirt with this, maybe sort of inspired by Grace, Babel's Traveling Yarns, she knit a drift tee a while ago out of I think it was also a singles yarn, and I think she said it pilled pretty badly and she wouldn't do it again. So I'm hesitant to replicate that, but I just, from pretty early on when she knit it, I was obsessed, and I've thought about it a lot since then. So I'm kind of thinking maybe something like that, a nice light summery tee, light colors to reflect the sun off. I also have 2 skeins of this. But I felt like this gauge was a little tight. This is, I think, 24 stitches per 4 inches-ish, which initially I thought would be good because I wanted it to be more durable, and the more tightly you knit the yarn, the more durable it is. And since this yarn is only 1 ply, that's what the singles mean. There's not multiple plies twisted together like in this yarn. I don't know if you'll be able to see. Yeah, you can see that's got twists, and this just has the 1 strand, which is less durable. The more plies you have, the more durable it is. So 1 ply is the least, and the looser you knit it, also the less durable it is. So, but I think this might sit a little stiffly. It's got fair drape that way, but this way, I don't know, it kind of sticks out here, like it's not very drapey. So I'm knitting a second swatch. I hand wound the ball while we were traveling, which ended up being a little bit nightmarish, but it was fine. It occupied some time. That first swatch I knit on US size 3. This one I'm knitting on US size 4. And it's feeling a lot more open. I have washed the other swatch. This one doesn't feel drapey yet, but it hasn't been washed. So I'm going to finish this one and see. I'm considering swatching an IF5 just to see what that would be like. I think that will probably be too loose for me. But I also think I tend to like a tighter, denser gauge. It's just my preference. It's just what I like. But it's very, very dreamy knit up. I'm a big fan. And then I sort of panic bought on the way out of the store a couple of other things. So I grabbed 2 balls of Daruma silk mohair. So it's 60% Super Kid mohair, 40% silk, 328 yards, 300 meters to 25 grams. This is also a Japanese brand, and I got this sort of forest green and mushroom. It's sort of like a woodier color than this one. This one's got more pink to it, I think, and this one's a little bit more brown, but they're in a similar family. I don't have a plan for this. The yarn fumes, they were getting me. I don't know what else to tell you. But the dreamy yarn was too much. I walked around and around and around that store so many times trying to narrow down what I wanted. I had a whole basket full of linen at one point, and then I put it back, and then I grabbed these. So this is the yarn that I purchased there. I also got a few other things, a couple of knitting accessories, and some embroidery materials. I got the Haya octopus snips in green. So I think pretty much everyone who is on knitting YouTube has seen these before, but in case you haven't, Haya started with puppy snips, I think, and then started coming out with other animals. And they are teeny tiny spring scissors with a little octopus cover. But they also had cats, which I think I would have liked better, but the cats they only had in blue, and the octopus they had in green. So that's what I went with. Very tiny, very non-threatening as far as scissors go, and easy to pop in a project bag. So I was excited to find those. And then excuse the crinkly paper, but I also grabbed their Walnut, Kyoto, Amarisu tin, the squirrel, which is full of stitch markers. Most of them are just the plain sort of flat circles about this size. And then there is a squirrel on the same size marker. And then, even though it's called Walnut, it kind of makes me laugh, but there's an acorn. So squirrel, acorn, and then just stitch markers, but also the sweet tin as a sort of souvenir of being at Walnut. And then I kind of put it all in one package, so it's going to be more crinkling, but I got some materials for sashiko stitching, which is one of the Japanese traditional styles of stitching. I picked out needles, white thread, and this pre-printed cloth for learning, which is on a sort of traditional blue background and has the stitch patterns drawn out for you. This one is called Chrysanthemum and Hemp Leaf pattern, which this is the sort of stylized version of hemp leaf in a lot of Japanese design work. And it's got instructions also in Japanese. I realized once I read the instructions that they recommended not using white thread. They recommended red for the flowers, I think, and green for the leaves. But I really like how it looks with the stark white and blue. And this printing dissolves when you wash it. So I'll stitch over it and then wash it, and you won't be able to see these lines in the background anymore. I kind of was tempted to start on this while we were traveling, but then I was afraid that I was going to get it over my head and that I might rather have the time to just kind of sit down and make a plan for it. I also got one other thread while I was there, which is indigo dyed cotton. And I just really loved the variation in the colors of the indigo. A lot of different depths. Some lighter, some darker. I'm not sure what I'm going to use this one for, but it felt too pretty to give up. And I'm pretty sure these are like all made in Japan, which is lovely. So that was Walnut, which was actually the last yarn store that I went to. So the first yarn store that I was able to make it to was Puppy Yarn, which is also made in Japan, but I think that they also sell in other countries. They had yarn that was their own brand as well. It was a much smaller shop, and both of the shops carried quite a few international brands that were not Japanese yarns, but I really was looking specifically for Japanese yarn. If I had had more money to burn, there were definitely yarns that are harder to get where I am or see in person where I am. Like they had more variety than what I usually have access to here. But I wanted to really focus on bringing back souvenir yarn. So I got 3 balls of this Pima Basic. So it's 100% cotton, 40 grams, 135 meters. And I got 3 different colors. Not figured out how to hold all 3 of them in the proper gradient, but these are the 3 that I went with. So I got a beige, a very pale sage green, and then sort of charcoal bordering on green, and they just felt like a really nice set. Yeah, and these are the puppy, I don't know if you can see, it's so small, puppy yarn. This is their logo right here, puppy. So I'm not sure, I might be able to get like a tank top or something out of this, or maybe like a shawl. A very loose gauge tank top, I think it would have to be. That's all I got at Puppy. I deliberated for a really long time. When I was at Walnut, I was there by myself and I didn't take any pictures, and I'm kind of kicking myself for it now. But at Puppy, my husband took a few pictures of me shopping, so I'll pop those in here. it was very rainy that day, and there seemed to kind of be like a knitting circle that was ending. But the language barrier, I wasn't able to communicate very much with them. But it's fun to get to see different types of yarn shops in Japan. The last sort of yarn shop I went to is called Craft Heart Tokai, and it's more like a bigger box craft store. I think it's more of a chain. They carry fabric, buttons, embroidery, sewing, patterns, yarn, all kinds of different craft and craft adjacent things. The one we went to wasn't super huge, but I think it had more that feeling of a less yarn focused store, but they carried yarn, if that makes sense. But it was also very affordable, and their winter yarns were on sale, so I kind of got more than I was planning to. What do you do? The one I got the most of is this Sonomono natural fine yarn of organic colored wool. Also made in Japan. It says 100% colored wool. This is 40 grams and 76 meters. But it is a sort of dusty brown boucle yarn. It's very soft, very fluffy. I have no idea what I want to do with it, but I have not knit with boucle before. And it's wool and it's soft. I don't know. And it was on sale. What do you do? So I got 5 balls of this. I'm running out of places to set things. And there must be other names for these that are in Japanese that I can't read, because this one is also Sonomono, colored wool 100%, natural fine yarn of original colored wool. This one is 25 grams, 105 meters, and I think it might be alpaca. I didn't translate before recording, and the balls are kind of falling apart, but I guess into gradient type things. So I got 4 colors of that. I went back and forth a lot at this shop between would it be better to get one color in a quantity that I could do a solid something with, or sample lots of the different colors in smaller quantities. And I went with obviously the smaller quantities. This stuff is like so soft. I don't know how they do it. It's incredibly, incredibly soft yarn. And this one is a chainette construction. So I don't know how well that's going to show up, but like we were talking before about plies being twisted, this is sort of like a giant crochet chain of yarn, like a tube, which falls somewhere in the middle on the durability. It has more plies in any one given spot, but there I think is concern that like if one ply breaks, the whole yarn could kind of come undone, I think. Beautiful. And then the last one is the same brand, the Sonomono. And this is another gradient. It is also natural fine yarns of original colored fibers. This is a 75-25 blend. I want to say wool and alpaca, maybe like a suri. It's very fluffy, very soft. 25 grams, 125 meters. It's not quite like your mohair silk. Like you can see this has a lot more sheen to it and is thinner. This is a little bit thicker and is more matte and fluffy, but it is extremely, extremely soft. Like I have no reaction to it on my neck, which is, if a sweater is going to bother me, it's often my neck and my wrists where I have the most reaction. So I don't know what I'm going to do with this. I was thinking about maybe using it held with another yarn, and kind of fading these colors through. Maybe I'll just make a really light, fluffy, like scarf with 5 colors, but it just, the natural colors, the softness, the sail, the yarn fumes, it all got to me, and I came away with more than I had planned from that shop. That's it for conventional yarn that I purchased in Japan. I got one thing that I call yarn with an asterisk, which is we went to a few stationery and paper stores, and one of them is Ozu Washi, which is one of the like long-standing traditional washi paper companies. You're probably more familiar with washi tape in the US, but it comes from a whole paper making tradition, and my husband loves to make paper, and so we spent a lot of time exploring Ozu Washi. And I probably should have grabbed them, but we found some socks at that store that are made from paper fibers. So they've sort of turned the paper into a yarn structure and then knitted it, and it's actually like reasonably soft and seems like they're going to hold up well. So he had paper socks that he got in Japan, and then they had different kinds of projects with that kind of like string that they've essentially made from paper. And this is the one that I chose to bring home. Some of them, they had like kits sort of with thinner versions where you would wrap it around a balloon and then put glue on it and pop the balloon, so you'd have this like paper spear. This one wasn't with a kit. It just came on its own. It's got no label. I have no sense for how many yards it is, but it is beautiful colors, like very stunning. It's, I don't know if you can see, it is essentially just like a paper strip. This one, they did something different on the socks. That is more like the fibers have been made into a string, but it's like I can almost unfurl the paper. There we go. So it's very thin paper that is sort of rolled and compressed into this yarn shape and is pretty sturdy. I don't yet know what I want to do with it. I had sort of thought, I imagine it won't make something very large, but I had sort of thought maybe I would knit like a cover that could go on a journal that my husband makes or something like that. Kind of combine the paper and the knitting into one piece. But I have so many other things I want to make, so who knows when I'll get to that. That's it for yarn. That's all I got. I got other craft stuff now that's coming. Buckle up. So I got to take a few dyeing classes and other types of crafty classes while I was there. The very first one that I made it to was indigo dyeing, traditional Japanese Aizome, that indigo. There's a workshop there called Wanaria, and it was such a fun experience. I will put some pictures here of me in process. I chose to do the traditional shibori dyeing, which is the folding to create resist patterns where the dye can't reach. And those areas will stay more white or lighter, and then the areas that are not folded or held with rubber bands turn blue with the indigo. So it was really interesting to see that they grow the traditional indigo. It's fermented. I think there are other ways that we make indigo that's in the US, but it was super cool to get to see. It did kind of smell, which he warned me about, but as someone who's done a lot of fiber dyeing, that didn't really faze me that much because a lot of it's kind of stinky. And I did the sort of traditional Japanese towel shape. What? It looks so vibrant on the camera, which it does in real life too. So the goal with this was to get the like deep dark indigo color. They didn't really ask me what color I wanted. They were trying to get me to the traditional like fullest indigo expression. I'm not quite sure I got there, but my goal was also to have my circles look more like this, where there's like clearly a double line of the white. But I don't think I got the dye to penetrate quite as well as would be ideal because I ended up with these like bigger white sections. I'm not mad about it. I really love this and I'm really happy with how it came out. I just wanted to clarify that I think in a technical proficiency sense, I did not accomplish what I set out to do, but really I just set out to learn and to have fun. And I don't know what I'm going to do with it. I had thought I might like sew it into a bag or make something with it or embroider on it or something like that, but I do enjoy how the two ends, it feels almost intentional how they kind of finish off with a slightly darker and different look. It's not really the colors of things that I have at home, but I could imagine it hanging on a towel rack and looking quite lovely. So I don't know yet what I want to do with it, but it was a really fun class and it was a really great keepsake of Japanese art and tradition. While I was there, I also bought this pouch that they had done. I'm not sure exactly. I think they did like a resist with some sort of, he called it, I don't remember what he called it. He didn't say wax, but wax is what I would have assumed that they used for resist. But basically they put something on the cloth here, most likely using a stencil, that stopped the dye from penetrating that section as they dyed the rest of it. And then once it was done, they washed off whatever the resist had been. But I love how this bag has a little like gradient where it's lighter at the top and darker at the bottom. And these are the Sakura cherry blossoms. So just a little drawstring pouch to show off people who actually know what they're doing with indigo dye. And it's fun that the strings kind of came up with different shades of the dye as well. While I was there, I also did a weaving workshop. I'll throw in some pictures here of me sitting at the loom. I had a really, really great time. I've never woven at a floor loom before, and I kind of regret doing it just because it was so nice, especially compared to the speed that I get on my rigid heddle loom. And it definitely made me want a floor loom, which I don't have the space or money or time for right now. But I think a lot of my weaving skills from rigid heddle transferred over to the floor loom. And I think he was kind of like, oh, I don't really have to explain everything to this girl. So he left me on my own quite a bit while I worked on it. But I wove 2 coasters. It's coaster A and coaster B. The loom was warped with these completely naturally dyed cotton threads. The blue is indigo, and then he said that all of the colors here are naturally created, and then they create kind of fun interest throughout the piece. And then so that's the warp, the weft that I put in, the brown and the green, are hemp, which is also naturally dyed. It is very coarse. It feels like sort of a, the woven placemats and things like that are pretty like basket material or something. It's pretty coarse and it's wanting to curl, which I think is funny. I don't know exactly what that is. I might iron them to try to get them to be a little bit more flat, but super fun. I also had thought maybe I would like sew these into a bag, or maybe I would combine it somehow with the indigo, but I don't know that they really give the same effect as the indigo. And I don't know how many little bags I need. These are large for like a typical coaster here though. So maybe, I also thought I could put them under like plant pots. Possibly. I don't know. TBD. But instead of any kind of like hem stitching or finishing on the edge, they cut them off. And I don't know if you're going to be able to see it. There is a tiny machine stitch run along the very edge weft thread to hold it into place. And so they did that. I think they washed them and kind of stomped them out flat, but a lot of the finishing steps happened behind the scenes where I wasn't able to see kind of what exactly was going on. And then they brought me back my finished pieces. So I didn't get to unfold my indigo dye. I think they needed to wash it, and it maybe is just a little bit much to try to fit that into a class as well. So while I did the weaving, they washed and finished the indigo for me and brought it out already opened and unfolded, which was cool to get to see. And I was kind of like, oh man, that would have been fun to get to unfold it myself, unfurl it. We also did a pottery class. I have nothing to show from the pottery class yet. Eventually, hopefully, things from the pottery class will make their way to my house. It was so fun. It was our very first morning there. We went and did a wheel pottery class. We made a plant pot, 2 mugs, and a plate, I think is what we ended up with. And because of the length of time that the process takes, we weren't able to bring the pieces home with us. So it takes about 2 to 3 weeks, I think, for the first drying and firing process, and then they do the glaze, and there's a second firing. I think the whole thing takes like 4 to 6 weeks total, and we were only there for 2, unfortunately. So we are having it shipped, basically, in a kind of roundabout way. So I have no idea how long it will take to get finished, and then from there to the next place that it's going, and then shipped to us. But once it's here, I will hopefully show you. I hope the pieces turned out to be anything worth having, but that was a really, really fun experience. The indigo and the weaving I did by myself. They took pictures for me. Josh was not there. And then the pottery we did together, and the next one I'm going to show you we did together as well. So we did a scarf dyeing workshop that was one of the wildest things that has ever happened. It was incredible. I've looked into it a little bit more since then, and it is a dye technique that only works on polyester or polyblend fibers, which is really unusual because most dyes work best on natural fibers and not on synthetics or polyesters. It is a waterless dye process that keeps the dye from getting into any water sources, and I'm going to try to explain it to you before I show you because the results are so incredible. You will not hear the words that I'm saying once I show you what we made. So you start with a scarf. I did a long rectangular one, Josh did a square one, and then you get dye that is in a sheet. It's like a sheet of paper. They had their pressed leaves and flowers and different botanicals that had been dried and pressed. And you start off by ripping your sheet diagonally to kind of create a more organic looking piece. And then you lay the botanicals on the scarf in the area that the sheet is going to be laid. So you lay them out, you put the sheet on top, dye side down, and then iron it. And it transfers the dye to the scarf and creates this resist pattern where your botanicals were laying. I hope that made a little bit of sense. Now I'm going to show you. This one is Josh's. He did dark blue on white. So this section here, you can see the torn edge of the paper, and then the resist from the, I think they said they were hydrangea, little leaves. This is maple, Japanese maple. Stunning. And then we had a few spots that came out like this. You can see there's like a light blue in there. And they said those were lucky colors. And we don't know exactly what happened there. I think my best guess is that there was residual moisture in the plants that they released and kind of naturally dyed the fabric, but I don't really know for sure. So that's step 1. And then step 2, since you had all these botanicals laying here face up, getting dye put on them, they now have dye. So you take it and flip it over, dye side down, and iron again, and that's how you get the botanicals here. They're slightly lighter because they're, transferred dye a second time over. What? I don't know, guys, this was wild. And then you can use the paper that you used before, and these darker spots are where your original relief was, that not as much dye transferred off, and so you can get a sort of light and dark effect. And it's color fast, it's set, it didn't need to be washed. We were baffled. And that was just the technique, not even to mention the like amazing quality of the teachers that we had there. So Josh did the square and then I did the rectangle. And I did green. And we got to pick our background colors as well. They had several light shades of fabric. But this is my scarf. And it's so cool. Ah, it was incredible. It was incredible. I want to do it all the time. So much fun. I got also the light blue lucky color, and I think he got some somewhere too, but I also got this like purple, which was fun. I can't get over this. This was like our last full day there, and it was an amazing, amazing, amazing experience. I don't even know where to go from there. It was so, so cool. I also wanted to share, I didn't make this, I just purchased it, but I bought a scarf that was naturally dyed with Japanese cedar. The scarf is 100% silk, and it's in a sort of crinkle pattern, very sheer. And you can't quite see on the camera, I don't think, the like pink, maybe you can, the pinkish hue. It's inconsistent in a beautiful way. It kind of, I feel like the light is washing it out a little bit, but it's stunning. And it's got that pale pink, white sakura vibe. This is probably closer to the color of the flowers than my sweater. This is a little bit more brown overall, and this has that like fresh spring coloring, which is pretty cool. Oh, and I didn't mention, while we were at the dye class, they picked up that I like green a lot, and they seemed to really like us. They friended us on Facebook, they were sending us pictures, they wanted to hear all about our trip, and they actually gifted me this that they had made, which is a little like tissue cover, because it was green and they knew I liked green, which was just like so sweet. So sweet. We also went to an antique market and didn't get a whole bunch when we were there, but it was really fun to get to see like all the different, it was like an open air market where people brought a whole bunch of different like varying on like high quality antiques and also just like vintage stuff. And while we were there, I found this spool of what I am certain is indigo dyed thread. It's in terrible shape. Like all kinds of knots tied in it. Clearly there's like multiple different threads wrapped around here, but I think I paid like $2 for it, maybe. Maybe. It was pretty cheap. And then I also got, the same place had a like just ball of indigo yarn, and it had this tangle attached to it. So it was not like a high quality thing purchase, but it was cool to have indigo dyed threads. And I think the like Japanese tradition is very much on reusing and getting as much as you can out of an item. And so if there's a way I'm able to repurpose this, I think that would be really, really special and really honoring to the culture it came from. I've been keeping all of the indigo stuff in plastic because I'm just afraid about it transferring off. I have no reason to think so other than every pair of jeans I've ever owned, but I think probably their dye process is a little bit better over there. So we'll see. I will, I'm sure, get over that eventually. Also at the antique market, I kept finding these like vintage thread spools. And most of them were empty. And then we came across a shop that had threads on them, and they had all different colors. They were stunning. This one, again, guys, I was on the like Sakura pink vibe. And this has like golds and purples. It's like the most subtly variated thread color, and it's silk. And I think this was maybe $5. It was, I feel like I stole it. The thread is super fine, but as you can see, it's got this gorgeous sheen to it, and I haven't quite decided what I want to do with it, but I might just keep it as a souvenir on its own. Okay, had to take a quick break, so if there's any like lighting differences or anything like that, that's why. But I wanted to go over the last few crafty things I got while I was in Tokyo before we wrap up this video. So I showed you all the yarn and the threads and the fiber and the classes that I took. The rest of these are just sort of fun bits. So we went to the Pokemon Center, and there was a Pokemon in the newest game called Woolaroo, which is a sheep. And obviously I love it because it's a sheep, so super fun. And I was looking for like a little stuffed one or something at the Pokemon Center, and I couldn't find anything. But I ended up finding this shelf, and they had a few different Pokemon, but they had Woolaroo in a needle felting kit, guys. It's all the wool to make your own Woolaroo. Look at it, it's so cute. I'm so excited. So this is my Pokemon souvenir, another wool felted sheep to add to my wool felted sheep collection. I don't have like a foam for felting. I didn't. But the like sort of dollar store, Daiso. I don't know if you're familiar at all with Japan. Daiso's a pretty popular low cost shop. They had a needle felting starter set, and it's got a piece of foam. It's not like the nicest foam, and then a felting needle, and then I think I also got, I don't know if it's over here, but I got another, yeah, I got a double, the glare is not great, but I got a double pronged one, which just goes a little bit faster, and it comes in a storage case, which is really nice. So I brought all the supplies to needle felt my own Woolaroo. And then I also found at the big box yarn store, they had some needle felting kits, and they had an alpaca. I just have to show it to you first. So cute, right? Oh, and you can put it on a little chain, like a little ornament. And I don't know why it's called this, but here's the name for the alpaca. I was rolling in the craft store, and I just couldn't leave it there. So, and my husband can read the like Japanese characters, and he said it's not Japanese words that are mistranslated. It's English words transliterated into Japanese, and that's really what it says in Japanese and in English. It's pretty funny. I'm guessing it has to do with the needle felting, like you're pricking or poking or stabbing with the needle. But it's really good, right? Okay, I'm a child. Also at Daiso, I dropped one on the floor, but they had these paper sort of basket kits, and each one comes with enough to make the project on it. This is both, these are the, I think these are supposed to be the same, but they're like, one's a little more orangey and one's a little more tan. And then I got two of the green, but they do look the same. I like this basket the best, so I might use them all for this basket. And I might mix and match colors to sort of get a set of multicolored but matching baskets. That's my thought. But I mean, guys, these were 100 yen, which is 75 cents. I don't understand. But I obviously had to get 4 of them, right? So looking forward to doing these. I also got this, which I couldn't really see what it was, but I could see that there was string in there. And I was like, oh, some kind of Japanese craft. I should bring it home. It turns out it's really just like a knitting, what do they call it? Knitting Dolly, Knitting Nancy, I-cord maker. It's just a 5-peg, but it's pretty cute. I'm making a little I-cord. I don't know if you can actually see it up in there. The yellow in there. But it was pretty reasonably priced as well. I found this at one of the gift shops at one of the shrines, I think. I also got at the Ozu Washi, which we got quite a bit there, but sort of crafty-wise for myself, what I was most excited about was this box of Japanese paper in the spring line. They had them for each season, but the spring, I'm telling you, the Sakura season got to me. It came with all of these beautiful, like, textured, this one's like slightly got a shimmer to it with a printed pattern. All these little papers like that. And the checkerboard for some reason. Darker one. There's some like greens and yellows in here too. Oh, and blue. I forgot there's blue as well. So this with a crane and some flowers. More like cherry branches. Blue with like daisies. Pink with maybe sakura or daisies. And green. More green. Daisies. And more green again. I'm not sure what this flower is called, but I've seen it. And the yellow with sakura all over it. Yeah. So I got these and brought it back. And basically once we got back, I started making origami flowers with this paper. And I made a whole like floral display for my mom for her birthday. So I'll throw some pictures in here of what that looked like when it was finished. I didn't really document the process at all. I just found some different directions online and played around and saw what worked. I was most excited about the cherry branch in the back because I felt like it's one of those where it's like you have an idea of how it's going to come together and then it does easily and you're like, what? My idea worked? So that was really exciting to get to see that kind of like come together. I also we went to the art aquarium. I don't know if I'll put pictures in here, but in the gift shop, they had some like paper fish, goldfish. And I just like took a picture of the instructions instead of buying their kit because the kit was for like a bigger fish and I didn't like the colors of it. And I was like, I'll just make my own fish when I get home. So these are the ones I made when I was learning. It's a little different than regular origami because you cut the paper and then glue it. But I think they're pretty cute. I'm letting Josh take them to his office at work. A little pair of goldfish. And then we found this little wooden sheep. Josh found it somewhere while I was like in the bathroom or sitting down or something. And he's got a little bell. And the place we were at, the line was way too long. We were not going to stand in the checkout line for this little sheep. But we ended up finding him again at another shop. And so one of them came home with me to join my weird little sheep collection that I have going. Probably live where the Woolaroo lives once I make it. And then Japan also has whole stores that are these like toy vending machines where it's like you put in some coins and you get a capsule and it's got a toy inside. And most of them are like, there's 6 different toys and you get one of them and you don't know which one you're going to get. And there was this one where it was like 4 out of the 6 toys, little figurines I really wanted. They had a red panda. They had an alpaca, they had a sheep, they had maybe a fox were the 4 that I wanted, and then they had a bear and a dog. And I did that thing like 4 or 5 times and got all bears and dogs. And I was like, this is so frustrating. Can't spend any more money on this. Like it's eating up all of my money. And then Josh, we found those same animals in a different vending machine later, and he's like, do you want me to try? I was like, sure, because so far he'd had really good luck getting what he wanted. And he got me this little alpaca. So they look kind of cute together. A little sheep and a little alpaca. But those were fun little fibery trinkets. And I just realized I had one more thing from the antique market that I forgot to show you, which is there were a couple of booths there that were selling like bags of old fabric. I think mostly like kimono fabric, or like, I don't know exactly what they were from, but I found one that was like a green set. And so I got several different pieces, not huge, just little scraps, but oh my gosh, isn't that stunning? This is probably my favorite one that I got out of the set. But, got a bag basically of scraps of fabric that was pretty affordable. I mean, they're just like offcuts. I think this one is really pretty. It's got like a scene, a little house and people, lotuses, I think. Looks like a painting. This one is kind of like just space dyed. I do like the colors here. I think it's fun. And this one has like there was clearly a hem before, but it's been ripped off. So this is like reclaimed fabric, I am sure. Got this green one. Also clearly had been hemmed before. Blue with little like burgundy and white flowers. Maybe burgundy and grayish pink flowers. Okay, I really like this one too. So pretty. Ugh. This one, I find it very intriguing. I'm not as like captivated by it as some of the others, but it's got all of these like sort of interlocking lines. Interesting. This one's a little more sheer, but very pretty. This one is longer and skinnier, but it's got little roses. This is sort of a sagey color. Clearly had also been hemmed, and I don't know. This is the front of it. It has this like silver butterfly on it. That's like rough, and on the back there's like bits sticking out, but I don't know. I've never seen that like embroidery technique on a fabric before, but it's interesting. This one, sort of dark purple flowers on a gray background with mostly teal flowers, but it's also a long strip. Another sort of sagey, crinkly piece of fabric. No butterflies on this one. This really bright, it's like teal and red flowers. And then this one almost looks like more businessy to me. It's got like a slight hexagon and dot sort of pattern slash texture, but is very muted compared to the rest. And this one, I don't entirely know why, but it has like a patch sewn onto the back. but I don't visibly see any reason that it would be needed on the front of the fabric. So I'm not sure what exactly that is, but most of these clearly had been sewn into something and then cut apart again to sell in this way. And I don't entirely know what I want to do with it. I think I have thought about maybe doing like another English paper pieced something with the hexagons, maybe a way to kind of incorporate them all together. Some kind of quilting seems like it would make sense just because of the like quantities that I have. But I don't know. I may use some of them for some things and some for different things. I had thought about like lining the indigo bag with a different cloth just to make sure that the indigo wouldn't rub off on whatever yarn I was using. So maybe I imagine some of these are probably silks just because so much of the textiles there that they wear are silks, but like the traditional kimono and things like that. So I don't know. I have a lot that I'm really excited to get back and play with, plus all of the things I had been working on before I left. I probably should give you like a bigger Japan trip update. If you are interested in hearing more about the trip, please let me know in the comments because I don't want to be that person who goes on and on and on about their travel. But we had a really incredible time, and so I'd be happy to share more if that's something that's interesting to you or that you want to hear more about. Let's see, any channel business. I mean, as always, if you would like or comment or subscribe to the channel, that really helps the channel to grow. We went pretty quickly from 100 subscribers to almost 200, so that's really exciting. I'm trying to decide at what point I want to do another giveaway. I'm thinking maybe 500. I don't want to stack them up too close together. But I'm very glad that you're here. I'm very glad that I am back here, and I'm looking forward to seeing what we get to do together in this space in the future. So thanks for being here. I will see you all very soon. Bye.